Welcome to the Handyman Pros radio show. Home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros.
Welcome to the Handyman Pros radio show, special Halloween action edition, where we feature scary stories from the field. I'm here with my old buddy Larry. And Larry, what's been going on?
Getting ready for Halloween, John. I can't believe that it's actually been a year since we did the Halloween show the last time, and we told some kind of scary stories out of the field. I think, so I have I wanted to lead with my scary story. I know I posted this out on Facebook, put it on the Facebook page, but we had a little bit of a flood here at the old Towner household, and it was kind of scary, man, because it was like the middle of the night, and it was not a whole lot of fun, but we had, as I like to say, a very rare event. We had a hurricane pass by north of Atlanta, which always means that south of that hurricane, you know, due to the swirling winds and stuff, you get a ton of rain. We had I swear to God, this was biblical rain, and I mean, it was absolutely pouring. It rained here at the house something like 5 inches in a half an hour, and it was along with, you know, all this water. We live our house is on the side of a hill, and of course we're on the downhill grade, and our water runs down our driveway and all of that. Well, in normal rains, even in heavy rains, what I would call heavy rains, we generally don't have an issue because we have cuts in the side. The water runs down the driveway and runs through a sideway cut to come up to the front of the house. And normally we don't have much of an issue, except for two things. Well, number one is I've had this chipmunk, and this little rascal has been digging a hole right next to my foundation at the corner of my sidewalk and the edge of the foundation of the house that goes up to the walkway up to the front door. Well, he's been drilling a hole down through there, and I've tried to get him out of there And, of course, chipmunks are very, very difficult to get rid of because they are crafty little animals. Anyway, be that as it may, normally, we haven't had much of a water issue. Well, we were awakened in the middle of the night. Literally, it was 12:30 at night. The wife woke up and she heard this drip, 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 and she got up. And for whatever reason, she walks over to the edge of the house, and I mean, she steps on the carpet, and it's like squish, and I mean squish, like, you know, water pops out around her feet.
Very nice.
Yeah, fabulous. Just so of course she wakes me up, and I mean, I'm like, what day is it? What time? You know, I'm just
yeah.
And I go running upstairs, and I turn the lights on, I open up the front door, and I mean, this water is coming down the sidewalk like I could have put a canoe in it. I swear to God. I mean, I kid you not. It's not even an exaggeration.
White caps on it, huh?
I mean, it's not even an exaggeration. And this water's coming in, and of course, I'm watching this chipmunk hole, and it looks like the drain on the shower. It's swirling going down into the chipmunk hole, and I'm like, oh, you got to be freaking kidding me. So I had a piece of old carpet that I live in a house that looks like the Clampetts. You know, we got junk all over. It's not junk, but I had this piece of carpet. So I take this piece of carpet, literally, and I mean, I walk out in the rain, and this is 2 feet out off the front of my house. By the time I lay this carpet down at an angle to take the water to divert it into the yard so the grade runs out around the house. Now, we had just talked about checking your grade, right, on your house to keep water from coming in your foundation. Well, I had already done that, and I didn't think that this chipmunk hole was going to turn into a 4-inch drain, which is about how big it is right now, right down into the base of my foundation. So anyway, I take this piece of carpet and I lay it diagonally across the sidewalk, and I divert all the water into the grass off above the foundation. Lo and behold, the water stops dripping in the house because now it's running out and around the edge of the house, right? I mean, to kind of give you the visual because this is radio, or it's voice only. But unbelievable amounts of water. So for the next, I don't know, 2 hours, I fortunately, Larry the handyman has a wet dry vac, right, John? You've got one too? Mm-hmm. I spent 2 hours vacuuming water out of the carpet. I took my shop vac is 7 gallons in capacity. I took 28 gallons of water out of my carpet. That's how much water I took out. 8 o'clock the next morning, because, I mean, it rained, not only here, it rained, you know, all over North Georgia on this day. It just absolutely drained. I'm like, I am going to be standing at Home Depot's door at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I bought 2 blowers and a dehumidifier, and I was one of about 5 people that I saw in the store that day with all that stuff, and I was like, I'm so glad I'm here at 8 o'clock, because by 10 o'clock, all this stuff's gone, right?
You weren't the only one, so that was a real trick-or-treat
Yeah, trick or treat, surprise, like, just what I wanted to do in the middle of the night, vacuum 28 gallons of water out of my carpet. Anyway, long story short, we put the dehumidifier in, we put the blowers on, we vacuumed a little more water out of the carpet in the morning, a little bit, not much. We got most of it the night before, and got the dryers on it in less than 24 hours, had everything dried out. So the story ended up being, we got a free carpet cleaning out of it because the water, we sucked out so much water and dirt out of the bottom of the carpet that we cleaned the carpet for free. But that was kind of scary, John. I got to tell you, it was a lot of water. Man, it was a lot of water. Wow.
Well, I had the same, the same thing happened here one time where before I had diverted the water away from around my basement, it came in my basement. It was, it's one of those very rare events when it really, really rained hard like we just had. I mean, that was a total. Now, when I lived, all you folks that live in the subtropical climates of, like, for instance, Miami and stuff, you get a lot of rain at once.
Yep.
And so you're kind of used to it. And so when I lived down there, I was used to it. But here it hasn't been that bad, but for many years. And all of a sudden, we get that stray tail of a hurricane come through. And that happened to me one time, and it came up and right up into where the brick meets the foundation, and just came right up in there. I mean, it was really bad. So I hear you, man. I hear you. I was down there, same thing, ripping up carpet actually, and sucking it out with the shop vac.
Yeah, buddy. So what other scary stories do we have for Halloween, John?
Yeah. Well, I know that you've got a couple. I'll tell you that, and I probably told this before. I was working on a guy's washer and dryer. It was in his garage, and I had to open up the wall, and I don't know what kind of a skeleton fell out of that wall.
Was it human?
It was something pretty big. I don't know. I don't think it was a femur or anything like that, but a human. But it was pretty big, and it hit the floor and kind of exploded. I had never experienced that. That was kind of eerie, But I will tell you that the other day, speaking of the gopher holes,
gopher holes.
The chipmunk holes. I had one, and I had we have those great big black rat snakes, and that thing was going down in that hole after something, But I mean, they get big. This thing must have been like 6 feet long.
And why do you know that, John? Tell me why you know that.
Yeah, he's pretty big. Well, I've had him around here. I'm a pretty good judge of those things by now. But he was going down in there, and he just had about a foot of his tail sticking out of that hole. So I grabbed the tail, and he was not happy. No. He was shaking that tail like a rattlesnake.
Yep.
And I started to pull him, back out of that hole. I don't know what possessed me to do that, but
don't try this at home, kids. It's not safe. Generally, not safe.
Yeah, out comes his head, and he's looking at me, and he was not happy, but it was kind of fun. I was like, okay, well,
So did he bite you or not?
No.
All right. So, folks, if you're not familiar with snakes, all snakes will bite you. Some have teeth and some don't. A rat snake that big probably has pretty good size teeth.
He would have laid a good bruise on you.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
He's not dangerous. For sure. He's not.
Yeah,
dangerous.
I mean, I wasn't going to go after. I wouldn't have done that with a copperhead or a moccasin or anything like that.
Right.
Leave that to some other good old boys down here to do that, but not me.
That's not John.
Yep.
But in general, so, in and around the Atlanta area, there's only a handful of snakes that are actually poisonous. We'll call them poisonous. And almost all black snakes are not poisonous, but they do get big, man. They get big, and they'll hang.
Real big.
Really
big and scary. They're looking, if you don't know what they are at first.
We one time I'm actually out by a house I had at the time, and I'm walking in the woods, and I'm not really paying attention. And I look over to my left, and there's one of these rat snakes, and I knew he was a rat snake after that. But he's hanging out of the tree, and he's looking at me with his head, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" It just scared the living. It's more shock value than anything. But this particular rat snake, they have kind of like a gold chain on their body. It's a gold like kind of yellowish gold, like rings almost, and so they're pretty easy to tell. But boy, he scared the living daylights out of me. I got to tell you, he really did, because he was hanging in this tree, and that's the same kind of thing.
I'll tell you what kind of scared me that one time was that we took that window out with that black widow in there.
Oh yeah, we did. That's right. That was this year too.
Yeah, that was this year. I know we're talking about the stuff that happened this year, and I just remember that. So that was a big one too.
So John and I
I'm glad we didn't reach in there.
Yeah, John and I had to take this window out, and so we take this window out. Yeah, literally. And as we pop the window out, we look down into the stud. Was it in the stud? Yeah, it was in the stud walls.
It was in the stud. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's this black widow, and it was a monster. I mean, it was probably 2 inches in diameter, maybe.
It was
all
big.
And the bodies, of course, are they're bulbous, and he squished pretty good, as I remember, or she did, I guess. I was like, kill that son of a gun. We're not going to do that. So I got a couple of stories of under bathtubs this year. So there were 2 stories. Speaking of snakes, one was snakes, and another one was actually back my friend Mr. Chipmunk. So one is a friend of mine calls me up, and he's got a leak in his garden tub. So I take his garden tub out, and I didn't even realize this until after the fact. But as I take his tub out, and I'm looking, and I'm like, what is that underneath wrapped around the drain? And I go in there, and as I'm sweeping out in there, I get in there, and here's a snakeskin that is wrapped around the drain pipe of his garden tub. Or was it the drain pipe or the inlet? It doesn't matter. It was in under the tub, and the way it was is he had a little bit of tiny access to the outside, and this snakeskin, John, it was a big one. I mean, it was probably 4.5 feet long in the tub, and those snake skins aren't. When a snake's that big, like the skin isn't that big, but it was probably a 6-footer, and I was kind of like, I just don't think I'll tell his wife that there was this snake.
Yeah. Sweet dreams taking a shower and a bath in that place, right?
Exactly. So there was that story, and then I was doing this remodel on one of the rental houses, and I don't know if I've told the listening audience of this, but anyway, I take this tub out, and here's the back half of a chipmunk, and I'm trying to figure out number one, why is there half a chipmunk in behind the sink, and then I'm trying to figure out I understand that the chipmunk could have gotten up in there and died, but why was there only half of him? Well, therein is the scary part. I don't know what ate it. Now, I have seen rats in that place, and I'm not sure if it wasn't a rat. I don't know, but something ate half of that chipmunk and left his legs and tail under my tub. So that was kind of scary, because I'm like, what ate that? What actually ate that? So anyway, so that's a good one. John, what other stories do you have that were scary from this year?
I think that everybody experiences those weird noises in their house, and especially when you're by yourself and you're just kind of laying there in bed and you hear things creaking and bumping around and things like that. And we'll do a show at some point on some of the noises and what they're caused by and how to fix them and things. But I will tell you, one time I had the weirdest, strangest noise in this house, and I couldn't figure it out for months. And it sounded like it was coming from the outside, and then I'd walk around the house and try to find it, and I'd go outside, I couldn't find it, I'd come back in. It was just the weirdest thing. And it turned out to be a weird howling, not whistling, but a howling of the return register vent. And I just bent one of the fins, and it stopped.
Wow.
But that thing, it was the weirdest thing. You could hear it all over the first floor of the house, but you couldn't pinpoint where it was. It was like a hidden, weird, groaning sound somewhere in the house. It was like, man, it was really something. I've never experienced that before. Sometimes you'll hear, a lot of whistling from your furnace, which means, you probably got a clogged filter or something like that. So, but that was a weird thing, and folks out there, if you're hearing a lot of scratching and stuff, you probably have animals in your house. which I've got another squirrel in my attic, that Larry was talking to you before the show about that. So that's something else I got to get rid of.
I had those too, but that was another scary thing we got rid of this year. With the squirrels in the ceiling. But I knew they were squirrels because I got beautiful video from my camera on it. But anyway,
that's right.
So it does bring up one other question. Or one other comment. So I was actually having a conversation with one of my clients that just moved, and they moved out of a house that I actually did some work in. It was done in 1922. Their house was built in 1922, and the house I grew up in was built in 1812. And we were having a bit of a discussion. She mentioned to me, this is a true story, she mentioned to me about how she felt that her house was haunted. And she said, because I was walking along one day and I got shoved. She said, I got shoved and there was nobody there. And my daughter was sleeping in the same house built in 1922, and she swears that on 3 separate occasions on the same night, there were people standing over her bed looking at her, people she did not recognize. Have you ever had any experiences like that, John?
No, then I sobered up.
See, there's the John Singer I know and love. Well, I mean, growing up in a house in 1812, there were noises and things in our house growing up that sometimes it's like, I don't know. Charlie Daniels said, there's some things in this world you just can't explain, but I don't know, But this woman said she felt that the house was, had a presence. Let's call it that way, a presence.
Well, she might have a point.
You never know. John, anything else for Halloween?
Nope. I hope everybody has a safe Halloween out there, and thank you very much for listening to our podcast.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Don't forget, join our Facebook group at Handyman Pros. Join the conversation. You can send us emails, questions at handymanprosradioshow.com. Go to our homepage at handymanprosradioshow.com. Follow us on Twitter at Handyman Radio. And we will see you next week. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.